undercuts our safety for his own ridiculous, sometimes even indiscernible political motivation. Trump's actions overnight make it clear. The fact that Trump withdrew Jay Clayton should erase anyone's doubts. Trump wants FISA to stay expired. Why does he want FISA to stay expired? That's a question the American people are asking, because no one can understand the rationale for it. Trump threw another grenade into the negotiations, again, by tying FISA to the SAVE Act. He knows deliberately that will make sure that FISA remains in lapse. And if he thinks that he is going to save his SAVE Act by attaching it to FISA, he's got something coming. We will never pass the SAVE Act. Never. It is so damaging to our democracy. And every time the Republicans are searching for a path forward, Trump slams the door shut. He pulled the rug out from under his Republicans who were trying to find that path forward. What shambles. What an embarrassment. Anyone have any doubts where Trump is at? Look at the chart here. This is Trump's hostage note. His quote, "I will not approve FISA." You got any doubts out there? We are canceling the Senate hearing. Again, pulling the rug out from under even people like Cotton and, of course, Thune. And Bill Pulte will remain as the acting director of national intelligence, a man dangerous to our national security. Trump doesn't give a damn about our national security or the safety of the American people. He's holding America's security a hostage. Trump, Americans, Democrats and Republicans are telling you national security is not a pawn. Stop playing with it. Stop using it for what you think is your political advantage. And then here's another thing he said. He said he wanted to add a slight bit of intrigue. There can be no intrigue when it comes to protecting our national security. What Trump is doing is just a clear and present danger to America. Congress has to conduct oversight to figure out what exactly Trump plans to ask Pulte to do and hold him accountable. Senate Republicans must work with Democrats to stop Trump and Pulte from meddling with our national security. We cannot and will not entrust the intelligence community to Trump's personal attack dog, Pulte, who has absolutely zero relevance experience. Now, Republicans must now choose. Either cave into Donald Trump's hyper-partisan demands or work with us to protect our national security. It's on them. It's on the Republicans. Senator Wyden.
Thank you, Leader Schumer. And my colleagues are making some important points. And let me make clear what my priority is. The reason that I feel so strongly about real and permanent intelligence reforms is because the person sitting in charge today, based on Donald Trump, may not be there tomorrow. And to protect the American people, we need real and permanent reforms. Donald Trump is reminding everybody that he'll swap his people around anytime he feels like it. He's also made it clear that he expects whoever is Director of National Intelligence to promote baseless election conspiracy theories. And if they don't, he's just going to fire them and appoint the next yes person. This means that the only way to protect Americans' rights is with black letter, permanent intelligence reforms that put checks in place on whoever is in power. Trump's position on FISA surveillance changes practically every day, which leaves it up to members of Congress to get together and negotiate reforms. Unfortunately, Chairman Cotton hasn't been willing to do that. I, for example, proposed Section 702 for a longer period of time than was on offer, with a few measures to increase transparency. And Senator Warner and I always talk about these issues. We often find common ground, sometimes we don't. But Senator Cotton blocked our proposal and allowed Section 702 to expire. We wanted it to be in place. He let it expire. So I just close this up by saying it is now even clearer than before that the only path to 60 votes in the United States Senate on intelligence is real reform, actual black letter law that addresses these issues and shows, as Ben Franklin said, that you can have liberty and security simultaneously.
Senator Kelly, an advocate of both.
Thank you, everybody. Let me try to explain where we are briefly. I don't want to repeat what my colleagues have already said. But a week ago, when FISA expired, so what does that mean for the American people? So if you're sitting at home in a place like Arizona, or maybe Arkansas, or South Dakota, or all the other states, like, what does this mean to you as an individual? How does it affect you and your family? Well, think about it this way, that through this law, FISA, we are able to gather intelligence from our foreign adversaries, foreign nationals, overseas, through a number of different ways. And with that intelligence, we have, on a number of occasions, prevented bad things happening to the American people, terrorist attacks, sometimes here, sometimes overseas. It is an incredibly valuable tool that Donald Trump doesn't seem to care about, and he's completely messed this up. Then on top of this, he nominated for one of the most critical jobs in our country, the Director of National Intelligence, a person that by any measure is unqualified for the job. I was thinking about this a few weeks ago when Bill Pulte's name first came up. If you were to make a list of the 1 million most qualified Americans to be the Director of National Intelligence, Bill Pulte would not be on that list. It is shocking that he put him forward for consideration by the Senate Intelligence Committee. So the president has been using this sort of like a game. But this is our national security. And our national security should never be a game, and it shouldn't be a bargaining chip. And over the last couple days, he's now inserted the SAVE Act into this process. What that means for my constituents in Arizona, I've got hundreds of thousands of tribal members that often don't have a birth certificate, they don't have a passport. Even though they vote by mail, they often have to make a 75-mile trip to even get to a mailbox. A polling place to vote in person? It's out of the question. He's trying to disenfranchise millions of Americans from voting, and he's inserting that into this process. So you have the combination of Americans are becoming less safe, and he's now inserted weakening our democracy into this. So, I mean, my point here is the president has lost his way on this issue. He should stop doing things at 4 a.m. and tweeting without sharing his plans with maybe some people around him who could advise him. But this has become a complete debacle. And now it's up to the White House to figure out a path forward here. We had a path forward as of yesterday, and today we don't. And that's because of this president and his advisors.
Questions?
Chairman Warner, Vice Chairman Warner, can I ask you a second? Since this came at 4 o'clock in the morning, can you talk about the back and forth between the majority and the minority? It seemed like it was on, it was off, it was on, now it's off. Can you just kind of give us a granular detail of what
Well,
that's like?
I'm not going to reveal confidences, but I can tell you that when Pulte was first announced, people in Donald Trump's national security team, I think, were shocked. You then saw comments of my Republican partners who, almost to a person, said he was unqualified. We worked together to try to provide 2 or 3 different off-ramps. Those were not taken. It appeared that the pressure got so great and the choice was so unqualified that the president stepped back and said, well, he's only going to be acting. We made clear that we needed to see a serious replacement. I was going to give, I had tough questions for Jay Clayton. He was, I can assure you, even if Jay Clayton had been confirmed, many Democrats were going to vote against him. That's their right. But to take somebody who at least had the national security experience and had a background and has not got a record of disclosing classified information, and then to have him yanked unceremoniously in the middle of the night? Yeah, Mark Kelly's right. Debacle was an understatement here. Playing, as the leader said, playing with our national security this way? It's outrageous. I mean, could you imagine the some of my friends on the Republican side who are viewed as like the security hawks? If this had been a Democratic president doing these kind of antics, they'd be threatening to burn the house down. You want to add something, Chuck?
Yeah, I got to go to a leadership meeting. I got to run. Yes, right. No, right here, right here.
Two quick questions for you, just for the vice chair first, and for you too.
Well, any questions for me, and then I got to run a leadership meeting.
Is there any way to unwind this? I mean, the president is.
Yeah, there's a simple way.
Right now, short of the president.
Yeah, there's simple. It's on our Republican colleagues to work with us to find a capable director, not someone who's a menace, and second, then to work with us on renewing FISA. It's up to them. It's up to them. This is Republican president, Republican House, Republican Senate, all screwing up with each other. They've got to come to an agreement, and they've got to have the courage to buck the president, who clearly doesn't want a DNI director and doesn't want FISA renewed. All he wants is Pulte.
You say national security is not a pawn, but it was Democrats who said that they wouldn't vote to renew FISA unless Bill Pulte was removed. So I guess my question
Pulte,
is,
it is so obvious to everybody that Pulte, to have Pulte at the hands of the gears with these tools would be dangerous to America, and even our Republican colleagues know it. Senator Warner, I got to go.
more dangerous, I'm sorry, more
Well, let's-
dangerous than letting FISA lapse?
Listen, ma'am, well, first of all, one of the things we didn't know, when FISA lapsed, will the telcos and the participants still participate? So far, they are. Number one. Number two, the concerns I have about Bill Pulte, frankly, have less to do with 702 than the national security risk of showing our nation's top secrets to an individual who's shown no respect for law, for privacy, the idea that he would weaponize mortgage information and the reward is you want to give him access to our national secrets. If that is your position or anybody else, that is the ultimate irresponsible position and is not going to meet America's needs. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me just make sure that you hear what the offer was at the end of last week. I offered 5 weeks. I didn't change any surveillance tools. All I said was there has to be some oversight and some accountability. That was a stronger position than anybody had on offer, and I made it specifically for a response to your question.
Yes, sir.
Leader Schumer said that it's on Republicans now to work with Democrats to find a nominee who can come forward and be put forward. Is it your understanding at this point that Clayton is...
I am not sure. I am not sure whether Jay Clayton has simply been postponed or withdrawn. I wonder whether Jay Clayton knows whether he has been postponed or withdrawn. And again, that is a level of chaos, incompetence, when we're talking about our national security, when we're talking about adversaries around the world, what signal does this send? I mean, I know this. One, that American national security leaders that have been appointed by Donald Trump were very concerned about the idea of Pulte coming in. Two, I know that our allies, when you put somebody of this level of non-experience and his only record is being willing to do whatever Trump says, regardless of the law, I fear our allies will cut back on sharing intelligence. That has nothing to do with 702. It has to do with whether this guy gets the keys to the kingdom. And again, this is not idle. If you will go back, and this is even, I had lots of differences with Director Gabbard, but there are already, because of some of the non-professional approach and undermining speaking truth to power, go look at the Dutch press or the Dutch government, which punches way above its weight in terms of a good partner and ally, was saying with this kind of approach to national security and not respecting confidential information, potentially violating sources and methods, they weren't sure they were going to share with America as much as they did in the past. That is not in America's best interest. We're going to take one back there.
Mark, just on this point, again, the policy issues are just as important. I've been talking to Senator Lee. Senator Lee and I are both interested in warrants. We've got to talk about something to ensure that the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, which we feel strongly about, really deals with foreigners. But if law-abiding Americans are swept up in it, we need to have some protection for them. Democrats and Republicans want to work with Senator Warner and Senator Cotton to get that done as well.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what I want to clarify on. You two are clearly on different positions on this 3-year FISA reauthorization that was negotiated with Senator Cotton, and you're saying there's not 60 votes without reform. You said there were 60 votes if Pulte had not been nominated for acting DNI. So what exactly, is there enough Democratic support for this bill if Clayton were to be confirmed?
Time will tell. I know this. Senator Wyden and I have discussed this, gone back and forth. He's got points, I've got points. We're going to continue those discussions. But I know the idea that, that Donald Trump, with his actions, didn't destroy this process, allow FISA to lapse. Anyone that makes a question otherwise, I don't think understands the circumstance or situation. And, we will see going forward. But the one thing we do know is that FISA is not going to be reauthorized if it's attached to a SAVE Act, which is never going to pass. FISA is not going to be reauthorized if Donald Trump continues to play, personalities and has a litany of non-qualified people for senior intelligence roles. My job is to protect the national security of America. This person is a national security threat, not because of 702, but because exposed to our nation's top secrets.
And I want to be clear since you raised my name. I am not for expiration. I'm for smart policy that ensures both liberty and security. And if you look at what the debate was all about last week, I must have mentioned it 20 times. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Last one.
Are you concerned at all that FISA is no longer an effective point of leverage to get the administration to remove Pulte? And if so, do Democrats have other means to try to force his removal, say lawsuits?
Again, when, the question that we are still, I think, don't have a fulsome answer on is, will the communication providers still work with the government? The law does extend until March. The question is, without indemnification, will they still participate? And I think that is still an open question, and I hope and pray we don't get to the point where they choose not to and we don't have this tool renewed. But again, end with where I started. I didn't think the president could still surprise me, but he has surprised me with an incompetent choice. He has individually derailed this key tool against the wishes of most of the, I would call the more rational people in his national security circle. And he clearly has gone against the the good faith efforts of national security Republicans in the Senate. This is not the normal Democrat-Republican. This is, I think, sensible people work together on a reform piece of legislation that I thought would have had the votes. Where we head from here, we'll see. But thank you all so much.